Okay, people, I'm going to come across to you with a new concept. We're out there with signs that say BLM, Black Lives Matter, or Asian Lives Matter, or LGBTQ Lives Matter, or Jewish Lives Matter, or Muslims' Lives Matter, whatever the individual groups are that are dealing with the inequalities, the assaults, the abuse, the biases. And it's creating a problem of its own. These are very important issues, granted. But when you're out there marching with just BLM Lives Matter, you're forgetting all the rest. Latinos' lives matter, all the rest. And you're saying, ignore all the rest, pay attention to my race only. When the true fact is, what we need to be carrying is straight white lives are not the only lives that matter. All people matter. Because when we're out there just championing for one group, we're giving them white people the excuse to forget about all the other groups. And that makes it easier for them to forget about that one group. These white supremacists like it that way. Why? Because if they keep us divided in our activism, we never can come together and get a complete thing done. If all we ever focus on is Asian lives or Black lives or Latino lives, that gives these white supremacists excuses. And sorry to say, the last 4 years have proven there are a lot of them out there. It gives them an excuse to say, well, if you're going to do this for that group, you got to do it for all of them. And then do nothing. Same excuse they give in schools when the bully in school has a popular or famous or good name, like the mayor's son. If the mayor's son is a bully and he goes out and he bullies one of the kids, and you go to the principal, which I've had to do, and say, hey, you need to punish this child for hanging my child over a bridge by his ankles where there wasn't any water under the bridge, regardless if there was. And it was like a 15-foot drop and he could have killed my kid. And then have the principal come back to you because it's the mayor's son or a cop's son and say, well, if we do that for your son, we have to do that for every kid. And it gives that principal an excuse to do nothing. That's what they're doing to you with these separate groups coming out and saying Black Lives Matter, Asian Lives Matter, and all this stuff. The white supremacists are telling you, well, if we do that for your group, we got to do it for every group, giving them an excuse to do nothing. We need to stop giving them an excuse. We need to start telling them not only do straight white lives matter, but all people's lives matter. Because let's face it, the people who have the most privilege in this nation are the ones who are straight and white. And even as straight and white, as long as you're straight and white, doesn't matter if you're Muslim, as long as you're not wearing a hijab. Doesn't matter if you're Jewish or not, as long as you're not wearing one of those caps on the head. They can handle a straight white Jewish person that doesn't wear the little beanie. They can handle that. They can handle a straight white Muslim as long as they don't wear the hijab. But they can't handle a Muslim who wears traditional Muslim clothing. They can't handle a Jewish person who wears traditional Jewish clothing. They can't handle even a what, Hittite or one of those other groups here in America that are kind of cloister religion groups. They can handle them. You know why? Because they're straight and white, let alone Christian, but they're straight and white, so they accept them. But they can't handle you if you've got a different color of skin. If you love anything other than the opposite sex. And as long as they keep you divided, as long as they keep you only looking at the abuses of your own group, they don't have to do anything about it. They can ignore your cries of injustice. Because when you come up and you say Black Lives Matter, they say, well, what about the Latino lives? What about the Muslim lives? What, you only think you're the only one that matters? And that gives them an excuse to do nothing. When the true crux of the problem is far too many, even people who don't think they're bigoted, but they truly are. Because they're not looking at the big picture on how white and straight means you're accepted and you get the most privileges and you are treated with the most respect in law enforcement and in society. And when you make a complaint of abuse against yourself, because you are white and straight, you get treated with the most respect. It's not automatically assumed that you're a criminal. If a black man calls a police officer for a break-in into his own home, he is more likely to be seen as the criminal himself and shot. If a Latino man calls for drug dealers in his neighborhood, and they may be white, but if he calls for these drug dealers, he is more likely to be arrested for being a drug dealer than the white guy standing there with the cocaine in his hand and $50,000. Because that's the way it's seen. And white people find that acceptable. White people find that as something to make an excuse on why they should do nothing. Because if they have to do it for one, they have to do it for all. Well, I say they should do it for all. No more of this single issue matters crap. Let's make the single issues matter crap be not only do straight white lives matter, but all people's lives matter. Equality is the point. Because single or straight white people, straight white people have had it too good for too long and come up with way too many excuses on why they shouldn't do anything. And because the Asian group, here's what the black group is here saying. They're over there siding with the straight white people because they're saying, well, our lives matter too, so why should we only holler about Black Lives Matter? And they're getting away with it. They're getting away with it. You're backing it. When in truth, when a black man has a bias put against him in law or society, you know darn well it's going to be an Asian man or a Native American man or a Latino man that's going to have the same problem. They all might be to different degrees, but they're all having the same problem. And the white supremacists are using that against you to continue what they're doing in the first place. Stop letting them do it. It's not just Asian lives that matter. It's not just Black lives matter. It's not just Latino lives matter or LGBTQ or Jewish or Muslim or what or Native American, whatever group is out there. It's not just that group's life that matters. What doesn't matter is how much the white group gets compared to the rest of you. That's what matters. And we need the bigger picture seen. We need a complete change. Not just for Blacks or Latinos or Asians or LGBTQ, but for all of them. And as long as you allow these white supremacist groups to divide you, you will never get together to correct the problem. Let's stop the division and start the uniting of everybody. Because I'm damn sick and tired of turning on my frickin' TV and watching another innocent black person get killed. And then, it's not even just that. We have gone so far on complaining about this stuff that even when a girl, I'm bringing it up, you're damn right I am. When a girl who has a knife in her hand and is on top of another girl and is ready to plunge that knife into that girl's body, and an officer shoots her to stop her instead of tasing her, which could have allowed her to still stab that girl and kill her, we're complaining she shouldn't have been shot. I'm sorry, but I don't care what color you are. If you've got a knife in your hand, you have that hand raised to stab, and you're on top of somebody, raised to stab that person, a taser just might tighten that girl up to continue through with that stabbing. Taser is not gonna work. Now, if she was a foot or two away from the girl, you got a possibility. But that girl was directly on top of the other girl with the knife in her right hand, ready to plunge it. And you want a taser. Yeah, I know that was a funny look, but, it's the example of what happens when a person gets tased. They don't always fall backwards and go like this. If they're already in a forward motion and their body is bent forward, when they get tased, they go forward. The knife was like here from the girl. She was leaned over on the girl. Excuse me? Taser? She's gonna stab that girl in the neck or chest where she was aiming for. You're gonna help her do what she was gonna try to do anyways. And then end up with two people dead, because then the cop's gonna have to shoot her. Because after she's done being tased and stabbed the girl once she comes out of that tase, she's gonna stab her again. Unless you keep on tasing her, then she's just gonna keep on stabbing. Duh! Let's get reasonable about this crap. Black Lives Matter. An innocent, unarmed black person should not be shot. Just like that boy who did have a gun, dropped it, turned around, held his hand up. You could clearly see he had his hands up. He didn't have them pointed out. He had them up. And he had no gun in his hands. The officer should not have shot him. He was not pointing in the officer's direction. His hands were up. The officer needed to look at that boy's hands and not shoot him. It's ridiculous. So now we want to swing to the total opposite side. That when somebody's got a dangerous object in their hand, getting ready to attack another person, we shouldn't use deadly force. Oh my God, that person is using deadly force. And that girl was 16 years old. She was old enough to know better. She was old enough to know that there's cops right fucking there. You ain't taking a weapon and using it against another human being. Grow up, people. Use your reason. I'm sorry, but if somebody was in my home getting ready to stab somebody and was on top of that person, ready to plunge that weapon into the other person's body, if I had a gun, you damn right I would be shooting the attacker. I'm not going to walk up to him and hope that I can stop him so that I can get stabbed. I'm not going to tase him and hope that it stops her from stabbing her victim. No, I'm going to shoot the bitch. Because I know that will stop her and save her victim. Period. You don't like that concept? I can't help it. And I don't care what color the person is. Now you got somebody who's running away from me and I tell them to freeze and hold up their hand and they do and turn around. I'm not shooting them unless they're turning around like this or turning around like this. If they're turning around with their hands like this, I'm not shooting them. That's just the way it goes. I am not shooting them if they're standing like this. And if I'm at a car with somebody and I'm pulling out a weapon, I mean, here in our police department, after that lady accidentally shot the guy with her actual gun and not a taser, and they were saying on TV they're supposed to have their gun on the non-dominant side and their taser on the dominant side. There was 2 officers in the hospital over here. And they had their weapon on the dominant side and their taser on the non-dominant side. And I asked them, well, isn't it supposed to be the other way around? And they said no. But you take a look at those tasers. I don't care what side that taser was on. When that lady had that gun out and was staring down the barrel of that gun, she could have easily seen it wasn't yellow. Like a taser! Really? And then she shoots the man. And then she's like, all shocked that she actually shot him. Was she really shocked or was she feigning it? Because any common sense human being could realize that thing wasn't yellow. Now that either tells me that woman in all and every case of any kind of criminal action has always pulled out her firearm and not ever pulled out her taser. Or it tells me that she knew she didn't have her taser out. because she couldn't recognize while looking down her hands at the person she was pointing at that that thing wasn't yellow. That thing was not the right color. And anybody with common sense would have realized that. And it's time we stop this division. We stop this one group or the other group. We start including all groups that are suffering from the bias of our legal system and of our political system. We start grouping them all together. We stop giving these white supremacists an excuse for the reason why they shouldn't do anything. We start looking at common sense when we're looking at the fact that there was a shooting done. Common sense says if somebody has a knife and they're on top of another person with that knife, just about ready to plunge that knife into the other person's body, a taser will not work. You are going to have to shoot and kill that person. If they're a foot or two away, yes, you may use a taser. It may be possibly the thing that saves the other person's life. A, giving them a chance to get out from under the other, or away from where they're going to be underneath the other person. B, giving them a chance to escape. And C, making it so the attacker cannot attack. If the person is on top of the other person, you have no choice but to use a weapon to stop them. Let's use our common sense. Let's stop dividing the groups and bring it one group. Let's start realizing the only thing that matters in America as far as the law goes and as far as policy goes is if you're white and you're straight. And if you want to go a step further, if you're male. But white and straight gets way more than anything else. Let's stop dividing. Let's start uniting. Let's start using our common sense. Let's make what we're complaining about count. Because for every little nonsense thing that we complain about is another thing you are giving them white people to make an excuse on why they don't do anything about it.